Hello, I'm James Hier. Welcome to Marketing Dividends, where we look at marketing's new and expanded contribution to company growth. I'm joined this week by John Broome, Marketing Director at Kellogg's. Great to talk to you, John.
Great to be here, James.
John, would you like to talk to us about marketing's contribution to growth at Kellogg's?
Yes, well, brand building is at the heart of everything that Kellogg's does, and has been since our founder, W.K. Kellogg, set about setting up a cornflake business in Battle Creek, Michigan, over 100 years ago. At the time, there were 40 different cornflake manufacturers, and so he knew he had to market his brand and differentiate. And I think his most famous example of marketing was what was called a Wednesday wink. And simply put, it was a way of getting into the all-important New York market. And basically, he advertised the fact that to consumers, if you go into your grocer on Wednesday and wink to the grocer, you'll get a free sample of cornflakes. So really, that set the trend, I think, for the business for the next 100 years. And brand building today is at the heart of everything we do, as it was for him back then.
What is marketing's contribution to growth at Kellogg's today?
I see it in two ways, James. Firstly, in a continuing commitment to building our brands, and secondly, the role of innovation in driving growth for the future.
John, you're an advocate of the Ehrenberg-Bass Institute. How do you deploy your marketing resources according to their principles?
Well, at the end of the day, I respect the mathematical evidence that drives my business, that Ehrenberg-Bass can lay out for most FMCG companies. So that means that I'm, in broad terms, employing an 80-20 type of principle. I have to devote 80% of my marketing effort in reaching as many people as I possibly can for them to purchase my brand. At the end of the day, breakfast cereal and indeed snacks are repertoire categories, and therefore mass reach, mass appeal, mass purchasing is what drives our bottom line.
So the engine of growth for Kellogg's is driving penetration?
Absolutely, because if we follow the equation of reach drives awareness, awareness drives penetration, penetration drives sales at the end of the day. We are a repertoire category. We have to reach as many of our light users, and there are many, many more light users out there than there are loyal users. We have to reach all of them in order to sustain our business.
How does your content strategy sit comfortably in the Ehrenberg-Bass thinking?
Well, content can play two different roles. It can either drive loyalty, or it can still be that mass reach opportunity. So, we definitely see content playing a role in that latter area as well. But when it comes to reaching teen boys, for example, it's really, really important that we drive engagement and the strength of our brand, with teen boys, so that basically they request mum to go and purchase the brand. So there's a relationship there that we need to maintain and foster for the future.
Ehrenberg-Bass is considered to be the only science in marketing, but it's not widely known. How do you communicate this to your board?
You have to become an advocate. Once you're a believer, you have to basically, I think through the lens of economic thinking, which obviously members of the board or the leadership team clearly understand, is actually demonstrate the 10 laws, for example, and how they work within your business. And it's remarkable, in the sense that the laws are quite simple to understand, and the mathematical evidence is there for everyone to see. So therefore, the understanding comes quite quickly.
There's been a lot of discussion in this series about marketers not having the vocabulary or the language to speak to board members. Ehrenberg-Bass seems to straddle both. Do you think that's true?
I think Ehrenberg-Bass actually is the language of the C-suite. It does lean more towards that science, that empirical evidence, that economic thinking language that, for marketers to have credibility in the boardroom, marketers need to be able to speak with that lens, through that lens.
The other language that a lot of marketers bring to their board members is econometrics. It gives them the proof points that they're looking for. How does Ehrenberg-Bass complement your use of econometrics?
Very nicely. I think basically, if in econometrics, if you're using marketing mix modeling, for example, that's a demonstration of performance, the effectiveness of your marketing campaigns. Whereas I think Ehrenberg-Bass is more an explanation of how your business works. The relationship between heavy buyers and light buyers, for example, and going back to what we were saying earlier, the need to reach all buyers in order to sustain and grow your business going forward.
We talk about the expanded remit of marketing. What business issue has been thrown at you in the last 12 months that they've asked marketing to resolve?
growth. At the end of the day, the marketer within the C-suite is the one person that the CFO, the CEO, and indeed the rest of the leadership team are going to look to actually providing that future direction for the business. And I think marketing has a great opportunity to step up to that challenge.
Which ties in with your global head of marketing being called the Chief Growth Officer. When did that title come about, and what does it mean for the way Kellogg's now looks at marketing?
Basically, my interpretation of it is that it reflects a more holistic approach to growth, a much broader commercial approach to growth. It's not just about marketers, excelling in communications, for example. It's about looking at, what are the levers that the business can pull in order to drive growth sustainably for the future. And the word sustainable is really important, because short-term growth is relatively easy. Actually having a plan, knowing what your destination is going to be, and providing sustainable, profitable growth, that's the real challenge. Is
the time right for marketing again?
Absolutely. I think particularly speaking from the FMCG point of view, the FMCG industry has been challenged with growth, certainly for the last 8 years or so, and we can't continue to cut our way to growth. So therefore, it's time for marketing to step up and actually demonstrate to businesses how they can grow sustainably and profitably going forward.
So where are you seeing these opportunities for marketers to help grow businesses?
Primarily through innovation. Any business, as we all know, cannot afford to stand still. And unless each business understands how they're going to grow for the future, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So marketers can step into that void around innovation and provide the direction, provide the strategy, and provide the output.
Innovation is something that we've seen being brought up throughout the series by other marketers. How are you addressing that organisationally at Kellogg's?
We have a separate freestanding innovation marketing team who are dedicated around the innovation agenda. We find that the skill sets required, particularly around unlocking insights, demand-driven insights, through to ideation, call for specialist skills in that area. And I think the brand marketer, for example, in the day-to-day of his business, cannot devote that amount of time that's required in that front-end part of the innovation process.
Is this a different kind of marketer?
Well, you could say yes, but I actually do celebrate moving marketers from one side to the other, because that gives them a great career experience and rounds out their skill set. But it's definitely a case that they do need those innovation skills in order to progress the agenda productively.
The expanding remit of marketing, the inclusion of innovation. When you're recruiting now for young marketers, what is it you're looking for?
Well, first and foremost, commercial understanding, commercial breadth. Whether you're in innovation or you're in brand marketing, if you don't have that breadth, then at some point you're going to fall over. But when I'm recruiting for the innovation side of the business, I need people who excel in insight understanding and can then create and take ideas forward through the innovation process.
Marketers haven't always been thought of as commercially responsible. So what tools are you using at Kellogg's that are changing that perception and giving you more swagger when you walk into the boardroom?
Yeah. It's as much about culture and expectation as anything else. So if we have a marketer who is very strong on the intuition side of the equation, we'll work with that marketer around expectations around economic thinking, accountability for the actions that marketer is proposing, and really looking at the range of options that their proposal may give us, because typically a marketer will always look to the positive, and what we have to be able to understand is what are the risks associated with this activity, and at least be aware of the potential downsides as well as the potential upsides around that proposal.
But what are the clear commercial outcomes you're able to show your board when you walk in with that marketing initiative?
Did we deliver what we promised? That is simply the simplest way of answering that question. And of course there are mechanisms and processes that sit behind that rather simple answer. But at the end of the day, it comes back to accountability of a marketer. I think the C-suite will trust marketing when they deliver what they promise.
What are the boards making you promise to deliver? Is it a sales number, or is it a hard metric?
At the end of the day, it's sustainable, profitable growth. That is the metric, and however your particular business measures that, that's the metric that we at Kellogg look at. So within that, there is a balance between the investment cost around launching a new innovation, for example. So the tension between the short-term outcome and the long-term outcome. And I think it is important for marketers to be able to give the confidence to the C-suite that it's worth staying the course of establishing a new product and investing beyond the first year, for example, to get that desired outcome.
A lot of marketers have problems with attribution in terms of the monies they're putting out there and the return for the company. What tools are you using at Kellogg's to try and deliver some sort of certainty back to the board? We
invest in market mix modeling, which can basically give you a return on the dollar that you're investing, whether it's an innovation, whether it's an equity campaign. The other tools that we also use is equity tracking at the end of the day. Is my brand becoming healthier as a result of this investment? And again, that can be monitored and indeed monetized over time.
So it's a mixture of soft and hard metrics that you go to the board with?
Increasingly so. I think increasingly the harder metrics gives you the credibility and the validity in those conversations. Often it doesn't work in the way that you precisely want it to. So at the end of the day, I have to expect a level of flexibility as well from the board.
Kellogg's has a long and proud history in the marketing fraternity. What do you see as the role of purpose in growth?
Well, certainly there is an increasing role as we go forward, and I think that's in response to consumer trends. The need for authenticity and for consumers to really understand what you stand for, what your brand stands for, is absolutely paramount today. Consumers are faced with a plethora of increasing choice, being bombarded with a huge number of messages as we know. So therefore being able to stand out in that crowd is really, really important, even if that means that you may be polarizing to some. In standing for something, not everyone's going to agree with you, but if in standing for something the people that do agree with you represents a marketplace for you, then be clear about it and stay true to it.
Customer centricity is talked a lot by the telcos, the service firms, financial institutions. What does customer centricity mean for Kellogg's?
Well, like any FMCG, James, customer centricity for us at the moment is primarily orientated around the retailers. We have this indirect relationship with our shoppers and our consumers. But going forward, I do see a world that will change. For example, with direct online shopping, for example, in some markets in Europe or indeed in North America, 5% of our sales are now coming directly, which does enable us then to have that more direct relationship with customers as defined by the telcos and banks, for example.
John, if I read the trade press, FMCG marketers are under a lot of pressure. Is it still a great place to be for a young marketer?
Absolutely, James. I think at the end of the day, what FMCG offers any marketer starting out on a career is that brand experience and the responsibility, the direct responsibility and a high level of autonomy around managing brands. I think, yes, of course, other industry sectors can offer lots of opportunities, but to actually get your hands on the steering wheel of a brand when you're in your, early to mid-20s, that's a fantastic opportunity that I believe FMCG can offer.
So the young marketer gets their hands on brands because of your house of brands approach versus the telcos and the service firms that have the branded house.
Absolutely, James. I can more or less guarantee that a young marketer will have their hands on a steering wheel of a brand much earlier in their careers than potentially if they were in a different industry sector, where typically decisions are made by very, very senior people when it comes to the brands that they're running.
So they have P plates on them when they're in charge of your brands?
Absolutely, but my goal is to take those P plates off as fast as possible.
John, one of the things that concerns me is I'm not finding enough toys in my cereal packets anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, James. I mean, I realise how important fun at the breakfast table is, and you know what? I'm going to take it back to the office, talk to my team, and see what I can do for you personally.
Thank you, John.
It's been great to be here, James. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Marketing Dividends.